What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to the Dapp Central YouTube channel. My name is Fareed and I'm your host here, breaking down all of the latest and greatest news surrounding the ecosystem. Now, as a part of this brief video, what I want to do is touch on some controversial news that was just released by a project building on Cardano and what the implications of this could have for us moving forward. Now, if you guys are not familiar with eTukTuk, there's supposed to be a automotive project building on Cardano, providing accessibility to vehicles all around the world. So we're now going to be checking out their website, and what I want to basically break down is going to be the fact that this particular project has chosen to expand its horizons and go multi-chain. Now, the community has received this in two completely different ways. There seems to be a group of the community that is completely understanding of this expansion into the new BNB ecosystem. But then there's also another side of the community that is basically calling this project a rug, and that they only fundraised on Cardano with the plan of going multi-chain and basically keeping the liquidity from the Cardano ecosystem. Now, the reason why I'm shooting this video is because this is not the first time we've seen a project multi-chain, and what I'm personally noticing as a content creator is the same mixed reactions anytime that any project building or that has started off within Cardano then announces that they're going to be going multi-chain. Now, what I want to do as a part of this video is briefly break down some of the pros and cons of projects going multi-chain and some of the impacts that it could have on the Cardano network. As always, if you do enjoy this kind of content, definitely make sure to go ahead and hit that like button. If it's your first time stopping by and you appreciate timely content like this, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions for me surrounding Cardano or any projects building on the network, then please go ahead and make sure to leave a comment down below. So as I mentioned, what we now have is going to be eTukTuk announcing their move to BNB, and I believe they're aiming to be moving to a layer 2 on BNB. Now, this particular thing that we're seeing here is going to be their updated website, which, as I mentioned, now references the BNB chain. If I jump over to this other page here, we have a prior version of their website, which basically stated that they were powering the future of transport on Cardano. So a pretty major change here between Cardano and the BNB chain. And as you could imagine, a lot of members within the Cardano community did not take this lightly, basically highlighting their frustrations on Twitter aimed directly at the eTukTuk team. So what they have done is they've released a fully dedicated paragraph or statement basically highlighting why they've moved over to BNB. But I want to be very clear here. There was a lot of initial confusion surrounding whether or not they were moving fully to BNB. But based off of this statement, it does look like they are just going multi-chain. So I think that is going to be the first point that I want to make about this video. A lot of times what we have are teams basically announcing that they're going multi-chain, which is simply them expanding their horizons and touching onto another network, as opposed to them completely moving away from Cardano. Now, if they were to move away, I think that that would have greater implications and there would be more leeway as to why the community could be frustrated. But if they are only going multi-chain, then again, I think that means that they still have a foot within Cardano. Now, what I think a lot of people don't appreciate is the fact that some of these projects raise funds initially through an ITO, initial token offering, or through an ISPO, and then decide to build somewhere else. Again, if the Cardano community is used to bootstrap a lot of the fundraising in the initial deployment of capital within the network, I could definitely understand as to why some people would be frustrated if those projects were to then move out. Now, pivoting back over to eTukTuk, what they mentioned is that they are going to be going cross-chain. So they're not abandoning Cardano, which was a lot of the comments that I read initially, but they're just going to be going cross-chain and expanding their horizon. So in terms of some of the profits or some of the benefits and cons, let's first touch on the benefits, right? So I think the biggest benefit is going to be market reach. Again, this gives projects the ability to tap into a brand new market, right? You know, Cardano has thousands, if not millions of people within the community. However, imagine tapping into an additional 1,000 or into an additional million members outside of Cardano. From a project standpoint, if they're looking to be widely adopted, this does make sense. So again, that's going to be the first, I think, benefit from a project's viewpoint as to why they might want to move cross-chain and expand their horizon. Number two is going to be interoperability. This has been mentioned before, but there's not going to be one chain that rules them all. Cardano could be extremely great at transaction throughput and at speed. However, it might not be great at scaling or other things. Now, these are just examples, right? Don't take this as a concrete statement. I'm just generally speaking. For example, you have Ethereum, which has a lot of dApps built on it, but their staking is not the best, right? So each blockchain does something very specific, and it does that particular thing very well. And the ability to be interoperable gives these projects the ability to get the best of both worlds if they're just going to two separate chains. Again, you could imagine that going cross-chain or multi-chain could involve 4, 5, or potentially 6 different chains, right? And again, it just depends on the market fit and the product fit for where that project is going. So that's going to be number one and number two. Again, number one, market reach. Number two, interoperability. And then number three, diversification. Again, the more people that are exposed to these projects, the better, not only for the project, but for the source chain where the project came from. So I think there is a silver lining in the sense that if some of these projects do go multi-chain and they get widely adopted, Cardano will get some of the credit given the fact that that's where it was initially launched on. So those are some of the positives. Let me know if you guys have any additional ones down below. I'm more than happy to hear them and potentially take you up on an additional video here touching on this project or on this subject. Now, focusing on some of the cons, let's break those down very quickly, and then we're going to wrap up today's video. So some of the cons or challenges include development complexity. You could imagine that, putting all of the time and effort to build first off on Cardano and then move over to another chain could pose a lot of development fatigue. Imagine having to build an entire dApp on Cardano's extended UTXO model, only then to have to go and rebuild that using Solidity on an ERC20 compatible chain. Again, not only is blockchain new, but the development on each blockchain is completely or vastly different than the next. So being able to fundraise on a particular platform, deliver a project protocol, and then potentially use the revenue generated by the first chain and then using that to move over into the second chain makes sense. But again, this is just loosely speaking as to the difficulties that are introduced when you're potentially building multi-chain or cross-chain. Next is going to be maintenance. So again, on the same kind of line here, if you're building something on Cardano, you have to maintain that. You have to maintain the community. You have to engage the community. You have to basically make sure that the protocol is live and healthy. Going cross-chain basically doubles that duty. Not only do you have to entertain or engage with the Cardano community, you now have to basically keep up with an entire set of new people that are now getting access or exposure to the platform that you've built. So from a maintenance standpoint, not only do you have to maintain the code, but you also have to maintain the community, the engagement, and make sure that things make sense in order for you to actually stay multi-chain. As an example, you can have a project that launches on Cardano initially, right? And they get a lot of adoption on Cardano because a need is there on Cardano, but that same need may not be on another chain. So again, these are things that you have to consider as a project, and you have to do market research, make sure that there's a product fit, and make sure that things are feasible when you're going cross-chain. Very lastly, there is going to be security. As I mentioned before, Cardano operates on the extended UTXO model, which is known for its robustness. And again, given the fact that it relies a lot on math and proofs, there is a strong sense of security when interacting with the Cardano network. That cannot be said for every other chain. Again, EVM compatible chains, I think because of the amount of time they've had to grow, are very, very robust as well. But it doesn't mean that the same security standards that are applied to Cardano are also applied to other networks. Now, Ethereum aside, imagine, for example, other layer one networks out there. They might not have the experience or the robustness that these other chains have, therefore making the application a little bit more vulnerable on those new cross-chain platforms. So that's what I want to touch on there. In closing, I just want to just quickly highlight that this is not just me picking on eTukTuk. I also want to mention that Meld has gone down the same route and faced very, very similar backlash. Now we're also seeing World Mobile doing the same thing. I'm not sure how they initially raised their funds. However, they are announcing that they will be multi-chain with a wallet that will support additional blockchains aside from Cardano. And they're also going to be using the Cosmos SDK to build out their own Aya sidechain. So this is not a brand new concept, and teams are constantly facing this backlash. We've also seen Book.io, which is a NFT reading and selling platform, which initially started off on Cardano, but they've also gone multi-chain, now selling books on ERC20 compatible chains, which include Ethereum and I think as well Polygon. So keep this in mind. This is not a new concept, but I think this is the way of the future. In closing, we just saw Genius X launch their own launchpad on Cardano, Arbitrum, and they're now aiming to get that over on Polygon. So a lot of these teams really doing their due diligence, reaching out, seeing if there is a product fit or if there's a market need for them outside of Cardano. And if so, they're able to leverage that. Again, I think in terms of reach, adoption, and use cases, there are some positives, but also keep in mind some of the drawbacks, which include complexity surrounding security, the actual development of platforms, as well as community management. So that's what I wanted to touch on there. Again, not to pick on eTukTuk by any means, but I wanted to give my thoughts as to what is going on in this particular trend that seems to have gained a lot more traction over the course of the past few months. Now, I do want to close this out by saying that I don't believe in maximalism when it comes to any chain, because again, there's not going to be one chain that rules them all, even though this is a Cardano-centric channel. Now, I would say that I believe in Cardano the most because again, of the community and the development that's taking place and just the approach here that Cardano has when it comes to being research driven and taking a more scientific approach to development than some of these other networks. Nonetheless, I do think it is wise to expose yourself to additional asset classes outside of Cardano specifically. And obviously, if you want to invest in some of the Cardano native tokens, then you can also do that, understanding some of the risks that come with those particular plays. So that is going to do it here for this particular video. Again, touching on a trend that has been on the rise here within the Cardano and I'm sure other communities as well. Cardano is not the only chain where people are looking to go cross-chain from. If you appreciate content like this, as always, please make sure to tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by the channel, consider subscribing for more content like this surrounding Cardano and the latest breaking news. And then if you have any questions for me surrounding anything that we touched on as a part of today's video, as always, please make sure to go ahead and leave a comment down below. That said, I will see you guys in the next video.